from the beginning. Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled that you've all joined us today to see the latest and greatest in all things imagery. Today, we're going to enjoy the ride as we journey through the realm of imagery, where innovation and technology has merged to reshape the way we perceive, understand, and interact with our planet, our projects, and of course, our assets. We are live, so apologies in advance if there's any background noise, sneezing colleagues, dogs barking at delivery people, and if headphones don't work. So I'm Rob Nichols. I have already introduced myself, but just to me. So yeah, hello everybody. I work at our AEC team here at Esri UK. I help customers get the best out of our technology. I go about understanding the different use cases in which they are required and learn all about the types of projects you work on. In recent years, I've seen a sharp incline in the interest in imagery, whether that's images simply taken from a phone and geotagging those points on a map, capturing point clouds from photos taken from a drone and using those measurements to run volumetric calculations, or through to overlaying satellite imagery that can be used to detect objects or extract features. So we thought, what better way to present some of these use cases in one webinar where we try and encapsulate most of our imagery capability within ArcGIS. So here's the agenda. We're halfway through the welcomes instructions, so we can really tick that off. Next up, I'll introduce you to our speakers, and then we'll be able to sit back, sip a tea, and see some of those developments in this space. First up, we have our Esri UK own Tash Senior. Tash will be flying through all the advancements. Quite a challenge, as there have been quite a lot, so this won't be a slow-paced webinar, I can assure you. Then we'll hear from our partners Tetra Tech, who have got a simple but great example of how imagery has supported them in recent projects. Jeff Van Itten is looking forward to sharing with you that story. Today, we're going to use Slido to get you to answer some quick polls, and then we'll use it for the Q&A at the end. So scan the QR code now, so you're ready for the upcoming polls shortly. For me, imagery has been an integral part of human exploration and understanding for centuries. So from the earliest sketches of Earth's topography to the first photographs taken from high above, imagery has been a window to our world. It allows us to discover, analyse, and appreciate the intricacies of our planet. And today our world can't function without imagery. We harness the power of satellites to detect weather patterns. We use drones to save lives. We use advanced sensors and scanners to capture literally anything with unprecedented detail and accuracy. And these advancements have not only revolutionized industries like agriculture, environmental monitoring, urban planning, but also deepened our understanding of global issues such as climate change and natural disasters. Using imagery techniques such as MRI scans, CT and X-rays, these have all revolutionized diagnosis and treatments in the medical field. Images and the way they are captured, and then more importantly, analysed, are now a vital part of the world we live in. And so within Esri, our commitment is to continue to push the boundaries of technology, and that has paved the way for some of the solutions we'll see today. From our off-the-shelf tools to the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning, at Esri, we give you the tools to see what others can't. We continue to unlock the true potential of imagery, and in particular in the AEC space, where all of your projects are happening somewhere on this planet. So whether you're a seasoned GIS professional, a curious student, or simply someone fascinated by a bird's eye view, we welcome you. Thank you for being a part of this, and let's dive into the incredible world of imagery together. Let's begin. First up, we have a quick poll. So if you haven't already, scan the QR code. We have a couple of questions. Great to see as an audience how far along the imagery journey you all are. So how often do you utilize imagery in your projects? I'll keep this on the screen for a few seconds while we look. The answer's coming through, unsurprisingly frequently. It's great to see. Yeah, we use imagery all the time, whether that's satellite imagery or images from photographs. Not at all interesting. Few of you there, and rarely interesting. Yeah, solid around that sort of 60%, 30% around the frequently and occasionally. Great. Next question. Which collection method do you find most effective for capturing imagery in your projects? So you either use openly available data, you purchase imagery from third parties, maybe you capture drone data, you take it from satellites. Split here, and this is good. A whole array of different answers. So a lot of you purchasing imagery, a lot of you using the free stuff, which is great. Some phones, okay. I'd love to know what those other are, by the way. I was trying to think of all of them, so let me know what the others are. Really interesting, guys. Thank you for that. Next question. So what are the challenges you face when processing and analysing imagery in your organisation? This is one where you can then select all that apply. More challenges than the 4 up here, but yeah, let's see where this ends up. Okay, all of you wanting access to high-res imagery. Problem in storing it and managing it. Yeah, okay. Good to see that the lack of specialized software is down there. That's quite good to see. Okay, most of you in around accessing high-res imagery. Okay, fantastic. Well, look, that's all really interesting. Thank you for taking part. Let's get into it. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Tash. Over to you, Tash.
Perfect. Is that coming through okay?
Yes.
Just need to check now.
I know. Good work.
Perfect. Thank you. So today I'm here to talk to you guys about how imagery fits across the ArcGIS system. And it's great to see from those polls how many of you are using imagery within your current workflows. So ArcGIS provides a comprehensive suite of capabilities for imagery. So it allows you to conduct reality mapping, so creating real-world representations, perform data management, so using data models that are optimized for different types of imagery. We saw before that was a little bit of a challenge for you guys. And also leveraging your imagery through analysis and visualization to share with stakeholders. And all of these elements you've seen before when we think of ArcGIS of a system of record. So we've got our content and data management here. When we think of it as a system of insight, so we've got our reality mapping and analysis, as well as that system of engagement, so that visualization piece. So let's bring this into a complete imagery workflow, starting from capturing all the way to imagery-derived insights. Now, as a customer, you could come in at any part of this workflow, and we'll dive a little bit more into each of these today. But there's also a lot of power from ArcGIS providing an end-to-end imagery workflow, so integrating all those tools in one place. So at the top here, we can capture imagery from different sensors. Like Rob says, you could have that from drones, aerial, satellites, and push this into ArcGIS, where we support a wide range of modalities. So how do we then process this data? So our ArcGIS Reality Suite is bringing together 4 of our photogrammetry software products. And these are designed to enable reality mapping at any scale and any extent. So how do we then manage and host this imagery? So this is where ArcGIS Image Suite comes in. And this is bringing together the different products for imagery management and deployment at scale. So whether that's you're looking at cloud native or cloud deployable. And then how can we get the most out of our imagery? So we have a rich range of imagery-specific analytical tools and geo AI to gain imagery-derived insights and really push this out to your end users. So let's break this down and dive this into each of these steps. So as I mentioned before, we can capture imagery in many different ways depending on the sensor. and also different aspects. So you may be looking at that spatial temporal resolution, or even the access or cost. So we could capture via terrestrial. So this could be as simple as leveraging some of our field applications like quick capture. So this allows you to capture oriented imagery like oblique or street side imagery. Or we have partners like Tetra Tech. So we'll hear from Jeff a little bit later. And they can capture terrestrial indoor LiDAR surveys. You may capture via drones. So these have really gained a lot of momentum in the AEC space. And this allows you to capture that high resolution imagery at your site. So many customers use our tools to capture their drone imagery. But if you are looking for more support around this, we do have some great partners. So we've got the likes of HeroTech 8, who can offer drone in a box technology, or Heligai, who have got a wealth of drone experience and can support you all on the hardware, training, and surveying. But we also have the ability to capture via aerial or satellite. And we can do this by providing some great access via the Living Atlas. So I'm sure many of you are aware of this. It's our curated catalogue of content, and it provides highly accessible, rich global coverage. So we've got some amazing data sets like Sentinel-2, Landsat, and even HICOM of our oceans. But if this doesn't fit your needs, we've also got an amazing set of partners to purchase these captured images as a service. So looking back to that poll, again, there was a high percentage of you who are looking towards these third parties. So we've got partners like Cyclomedia, who provide this 360-degree panoramic photos. So really rich detail, allowing you to pick up aspects like house numbers and individual infrastructure characteristics. Or we've got partners like Blue Sky, who provide these citywide 3D meshes. So they cover some big cities like London, Birmingham, or Nottingham. Or we've even got Black Sky. So if you saw our recent conference, you would see the ability for us to use Black Sky to task a satellite to capture imagery. So within capturing the imagery into your AGOL account, it can take as little as 90 minutes. So now that we've got thousands of these kind of raw images, how can we process these to provide this rich image derived outputs? Now, the key thing here is that no matter which product you use, it's all powered by this unified processing engine called ArcGIS Reality Engine. And it all provides these same outputs. And the Reality Engine is just an involvement of the Shore engine with some improvements there. So it creates these really rich high resolution outputs. And just kind of looking at the products at a high level, we've got Drone to Map, which we'll hear from Jeff from later, and also SiteScan. So these are solutions focused on drone mapping and specific for your sites. So it's more suited to drones, and this is down to kind of the limitation on how many images can be processed. And a key thing here that we speak to customers about is that they can bring in their own archive of drone data into these products and start processing from there. Whereas we've now got some new products as well on the block. So we've got our Reality Extension for Pro, which provides 3D reality mapping directly in Pro. So you can use this across all different sensors and provides really rich functionality. And if you want to push this further, we have our ArcGIS Reality Studio, which is a standalone application. And this is really designed for capturing by aerial aircraft. So really great for citywide and countrywide mapping. Now, again, there's many variables as to why you would choose one of these products. So if you do want any more information, please do reach out to your account manager. So we spoke a little bit about those derived outputs, and there's a massive range of 2D and 3D products. So this could be based just on aerial images or using a combination of aerial and LiDAR data. So let's pick this apart a little bit and dive into each one. So an image collection allows you to manage a collection of images. So using a single layer, so you can actually access each individual image independently. We've got an orthomosaic, so stitching together multiple images into a single data set to create this one layer. We've got our digital terrain model, so representing that real world bare earth surface. Whereas the digital surface model is building upon that and adding above ground features like buildings and trees, which you can see in that image. We've also got a digital surface model mesh. So this is essentially a 2D orthomosaic draped over a DSM to provide this 2.5D mesh. So it provides this really well-defined geometry, but sometimes texturing can be challenging on specific assets like trees or overhanging structures there. So just something to note, but still can be really powerful. We've got a 3D mesh, so generating a full photorealistic mesh which carries your geodata. And last but not least, we've got a point cloud there. So this is representing the last LiDAR point clouds. So producing millions of accurate points and integrating it with the original RGB values to create this, this photorealistic picture. Now, just kind of breaking it down a little bit more, when we're thinking about orthomosaics, the properties and methods by which they're created can differ to create these different outputs. So orthomosaics provide accurate locations for features on the ground, while above ground features such as buildings and trees will appear to lean away from the camera. So we can see that on our left-hand traditional orthomosaic. So they're not in their correct horizontal location. Whereas we can see on the right-hand side, we've got our true orthos, and you can see that every pixel appears in its geometrically correct position. So we don't have that building lean or obscuring on the ground. And this is achieved by first creating a very detailed digital surface model and integrating it into the process. Now, another key comparison is when to use a 3D mesh or a point cloud. So a 3D mesh, as you can see, is a really intuitive way to empower non-specialists to interact with your data. It integrates that existing metadata, but not to mention it provides this really impressive digital twin, so you can start to overlay that GIS data and share that with different stakeholders. But in that process, it does start to smooth out the data in the creation. So point clouds don't necessarily provide the photorealism of a mesh, but they are highly accurate in the data sets. And so many of our analysis tools are designed to work with point clouds, using it from that LiDAR data. So I would say it's kind of best practice to use the raw data of a point cloud if you're interested in running analytics on your reality mapping content. So next, looking at how you can manage your imagery. So as we did the poll earlier, again, that flagged up as one of your challenges. And there's definitely lots of elements to take on board when choosing how to kind of look at those different deployment patterns. So we can now look at what support's right for your organization. So are you just using desktop? Maybe an image analyst extension with Pro could fit your needs. Are you SaaS first and want to host and analyze your imagery in the cloud? So we've got ArcGIS Image for online, which has a rich range of capabilities there. Or do you already stand up your own infrastructure and really want to extend these imagery capabilities? So we've got Image Server that allows you to do this. Or it could be that you want to be SaaS first, but you currently store your data in Azure or AWS, or you're wanting to, and you want to stand your ArcGIS up next to your imagery. So this is a newer product, so Image Dedicated, And this is an option as a managed SaaS approach. Now, there's many other questions to ask yourself, as I mentioned before, in these deployment options. So it could be, what volume of data do you have? Do you have an IT team to manage this? And really importantly, how is the end user going to need and use your imagery? So a large part of this conversation is the power of software as a service. And as you can see here, within these different deployment patterns, they can be cloud deployable or cloud native. And again, if you've got any further questions and want to dive into this a little bit more, please do reach out to your account manager. So now on to the exciting part. So how can you extract the most out of your imagery? Before we kind of go into the analysis, there really is a lot of power in the seamless visualization of imagery for many use cases. But on top of that, as many of you are aware, ArcGIS has a rich range of imagery tools. So whether they're built-in analysis tools, it could be our raster function templates that you can create bespoke reusable imagery workflows, as well as leveraging the many AI tools that are out there. So we've got lots of pre-canned deep learning packages available in the Living Atlas. You can see a few of them on the screen here. And what's really great is that you can take some of these deep learning packages and start to build on them and train them with your own data to make them as accurate as possible. So we can see things like being able to detect certain objects or extract certain assets like roads or building footprints. We can start to classify images, so whether that is land cover classification or crop classification. So a really rich range here that you can go and start to leverage at your fingertips. So as we kind of round up that section, a key message is around the power of the full suite. So the power of being able to access your data and then visualize it and then gaining these rich insights. And it's also part of this open interoperable system, so you can integrate with those current workflows. And real value comes to that end user. So we're going to jump into that now, looking at a few demos and putting this into practice. But before I do, I just want to remind you that we do have our Slido here. So if you scan the QR code, and if any questions have come up during that section, please kind of write them in there, and we will get back to them at the end of the session. So now jumping onto looking at some of the use cases in AEC. So starting at that planning phase, we may be looking at pre-construction and understanding the land in terms of that environmental planning. So what we're looking at here is a 2D orthomosaic captured by satellite. So it's actually Sentinel-2 data, and you can explore this app afterwards. It's the Land Cover Explorer app. So what we're looking at, if we're looking at winning certain projects or better understanding our projects, we can view and visualize this site over time. So we can better understand that land use. We can start to apply visual renderings on the RGB to understand potentially the health of the vegetation. So we could put in NDVI. This could be really helpful with things like biodiversity net gain and understanding some of those regulations before going out on site and planning your design. And we can also see this over time as well, and leveraging some of the land cover capabilities. So using that image for that classification. So we can see here how these built areas are expanding over time. So we can see here that we can derive a lot just from an image there, and leveraging some of those different tools. Now, another part of the planning process is kind of being able to be resilient and plan for the future. So an example could be landslide susceptibility. So here we're looking at a 2D orthomosaic captured by aerial from our partners Blue Sky. This provides a really rich 14.5 centimeter resolution, and it's being processed by image for online. So it's actually 6 gigabytes worth of data. So if we just jump into it here, we can start to see some of those tools available. So this is all for Image Inline, and we can select a deep learning model here. So as we go into the Living Atlas, as I mentioned before, we've got a rich range of deep learning tools. So it could be tree point classification, it could be extracting roads or parcels, power line classification if you're looking at point clouds. Now for this one, we want to better understand the infrastructure and understand where our buildings are. So we can select that package and bring it straight into our project. And here, as we process it, we can see one that we've processed a little bit earlier, and it's pulling out all of those building footprints. Now we can gain even more insight from this image as well. So we can run other tools like land cover classification, so better understanding as well some of the pixels there, and being able to understand how that interacts with those building footprints. So we can see here that we can see all the natural and built environment. So this could be really important, not only for landslide susceptibility, but also understanding other use cases, potentially like earthworks and cut and fill extraction. So just jumping a little bit ahead here, we can start to create our own land susceptibility model. So using those raster function templates that I mentioned earlier to create a bespoke workflow. So we can see here we've got all our building block imagery tools on the side, and we've brought them all together there to create our own bespoke workflow. You can see lots of rich tools there. So this is something that you can create and share with other colleagues, share it out to your organization, or even share it publicly if you want to share that knowledge further. This has produced our landslide susceptibility raster. So really exciting there. We can see those red high risk areas, and we can see some of those lower risk areas. So as I said before, this could be used for many different use cases here. And we can start to pull this into a more immersive scene. So if I just jump ahead here, we can see we can extrude some of those buildings there and start to visualize that further. Now, as we move into the design phase, we've got a little bit of an art of the possible here. So we're using our ArcGIS Maps SDK for Unreal Engine to visualize our project. Now, this, again, you can see is really immersive. It could be used for digital rehearsals to better understand how does that design fit in practice, and understanding it better in terms of that construction phase. So you can see here it's incredibly rich in that resolution and that detail, and really gives you a better insight into what a project could potentially look like, and potentially put forward different design kind of freezes or iterations to better understand that. So next we're looking at this build phase and off-site inspections. So we're seeing point clouds that have been captured at different periods of the construction phase, and being able to classify them as well, and starting to visualize them and gain insight from them. So here we can see it's classified the building, the vegetation, even the machine as well, so we can pick that out. What we're looking at is an oriented imagery viewer. So we can see this is indoors as we're building on site. And as I mentioned before, we're getting really rich, accurate detail from the point cloud. So we can go out and do measurements all from sitting at our office there. And we've got it alongside those really raw images from that oriented viewer to sound truth them and make sure that all of those assets and inspections that you're doing are correct. Now, this could be really important because it's mitigating that ability for a surveyor to go out on site. And so again, it's getting rid of that health and safety phase there. So we can see here we're adding in a new job site issue and updating that so that those on site can go out and inspect it there. So another example of using oriented imagery for off-site inspections is this one of building E. So we can see there, we can see the orientation of the image, and we can see progress again over time. So we can pick out an image from 2018 there, and we can start to orientate it around our site depending on what we're looking to inspect. Now, as you saw before, we've got a rich range of images here. So I can start to look at that as progress over time here. And we can see the really high resolution images there as we're starting to build. So again, just bringing all of that workflow together. And by all means, you can go out and do asset inspections on here. Again, mitigating that from a health and safety perspective. Hear how rich in that detail it is there, and being able to pick out hazards. So as we jump into that most recent capture, it could also lead into that operational phase as well. So again, being able to inspect specific assets without going on site, and being able to view them from all these different perspectives as well to get a full picture of your assets there. Now, another example I just wanted to show you of this same site is using 2D oriented imagery captured by quick capture. So this is just simply photos from your mobile. And we can see here that we can see the site and again, be able to do that operational phase and do those inspections without going on site. So again, really rich detail by being able to understand the perspective of the image and also picking out other images there. So another flavor is looking at point clouds as well. So here we've got some rich details of even going inside a tunnel here, so we can see with that rendering how incredible that resolution is. And as we're zooming to specific parts of the site, again, we can do asset inspections like looking at this graffiti and being able to understand the area that needs to be cleaned and going out on site there. So all of these apps as well are available on our demo site, so you can go and have a play around with them yourself here. We've also got this element of bringing in some of that AI as well. So we're looking at a runway and we've used AI to do crack detection here. And as we're zooming along again, we're getting an idea of the count of segments and the total length there. And then last but not least, again, on this operational phase is being able to manage assets. By having that digital twin, we can start to integrate more detailed features like our BIM and CAD models into it and better understand that environment around it. So I hope you've got a good idea of understanding ArcGIS as a comprehensive imagery system. And I did flag this up at the start. But we need to think of imagery with the users in mind. So when we're thinking of imagery, there is this whole workflow here. But key to this is better understanding what, in fact, your users are needing out of the imagery and working from there. So I hope you've got a good insight from better understanding the conceptual components of imagery within ArcGIS, as well as some of the use cases. So now I'm going to pass on to Jeff, who's going to show you this a little bit more in practice, utilizing drone to map.
Thank you, Tash. Can you hear my microphone okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Next slide, please. Bob. Good morning, I'm Jeff Van Etten, and I'm the Director, Head of GIS at Tetra Tech across the UK and Europe. Today, I'm going to discuss how we used Drone to Map to help us capture and validate asset data across a portfolio of sites. Next slide. For this project, we were given 25 AutoCAD DWGs as a starter. As with all projects, the client had a tight timescale and limited budget. We were asked to bring all the data into GIS to visualize the above and below ground assets and assign CAD text as attribution in GIS. We also needed to acquire up-to-date imagery and then share this all back with the client. So how did we do this? Next slide, please. Our solution was to utilize the following. However, today I'm going to focus on Drone to Map and how we use this to process drone imagery from these 25 sites and publish this to ArcGIS Online. Next slide. Here's a screen grab of the feature-rich asset data in ArcGIS Pro. As you can see, the data has been divided into points, lines, and polygons and added to domains so that we get a consistent view across all 25 sites. We've also assigned attribution from CAD text so that no detail is lost. Next slide, please. But we were still faced with a problem where some sites were difficult to access. Here you can see one site in the middle of a city that is between buildings. Turning on the Esri imagery base mapping does not show the site, and there is a lot of building lean as the imagery was taken from a satellite. By using data acquired by a drone, we were able to utilize up-to-date, high-resolution imagery over each of our sites. This allowed us to see the site with more detail and clarity, as well as in the correct location. And as you can see on the site here, our points, lines, and polygons align perfectly with the imagery shown on the map. Next slide, please. So how did we do this? We started with writing a specification for this project to be used by the drone operator, detailing things like ground control points, how much overlap was needed, and the flying conditions. Once we received the data, we reviewed the quality report, imported the drone imagery into Drone to Map, validated our ground control points, processed the data, and finally shared on ArcGIS Online with the project team. Next slide, please. Here is our same site as shown before, now in Drone to Map. We can turn on the imagery capture points and the flight path to make sure the site was flown correctly. By clicking on a point, we can see the raw imagery come through now and allow us to inspect it for clarity and consistency. We define the site extent to limit the processing of the data, as you can see here with a green line coming onto the screen shortly. Once processed, we get a digital surface model, or DSM, of the site. As shown on the screen now. And then we are also able to review, ultimately, our orthomosaic imagery. Zooming in, we can see the clarity produced and inspect our GCPs, or ground control points, for their accuracy. The targets that we used for this were painted on with some temporary paint, as you can see here. And as people walked around, sometimes they actually may have stepped into them, which did cause us some problems on some of the sites, but ultimately it worked okay. Next slide, please. Here in ArcGIS Online, you can see our site with OpenStreetMap as the background. This is being replaced with the Esri imagery base map. And then finally, with our new high-resolution imagery from drone to map. And I think you will agree with me, the image quality is outstanding. We achieved something around 2 centimeter resolution for all of our imagery across all these 25 sites, which for maintaining and looking at asset data was perfect for our requirements. Next slide, please. So what did we achieve? Through automation of importing CAD data and acquiring high-resolution imagery, we had around a 75% savings in both time and cost on the project. From a health and safety perspective, we reduced the need to have multiple site visits to verify and validate the assets by our project team. This in turn improved our internal QC quality control processes that led us to winning additional work. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time today. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Just to be sure you can hear me.
We can.
Excellent news. Excellent news. I was getting worried then. It was radio silence. Really, really fascinating. Jeff, thank you very much for that. If there are any questions for Jeff or any questions so far, we'll be starting our Q&A shortly. So again, here's a QR code if you want to post a question to any of the speakers today. First up, we've just got a few resources for you. We put this together. There's the demo site that Tash mentioned. There's a few web resources. There's a couple of training courses and so on and so forth. So please go ahead and make use of them. There is also an imagery and remote sensing user group that Esri put on. So yeah, if you're interested in being part of that group, being part of that community, then please go ahead and find this, join. I understand they're looking to do some sort of virtual events later on this year, some webinars and some meetups. So yeah, again, if you're interested, please go ahead and find that out. Okay, so Q&A. We jump across to Slido here. So if you haven't used Slido before, you can see the questions already posted. Upvote the ones that you want to hear answers from, because they'll go to the top, and also see if there's any duplicates, so you don't ask a question that's already been asked. And we'll just start to go through them. So the top one, number 4. So how does one find the deep learning models, and are they available free with an ArcGIS license? Tash, probably one for you, that one.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, so they are freely available. So if you go into the Living Atlas and you type in deep learning packages, you'll see a long list of those models. So what will that allow you to do is just better understand the models. You can download them as well and use them within Pro as well, if that's something, a workflow you're already doing. Like I showed as well at one point, so if you have a license for ArcGIS Image for Online, again, you can start using them via that as well. So yeah, there's many different methods for you to kind of use those deep learning models, and I definitely would recommend it. Like I said, you know, bringing in your own data as well to make them as accurate as possible. But yes, they are free with that ArcGIS license.
Great, thank you, Tash. Next up, probably staying with you, Tash, on this one. So what is the best format to share images in ArcGIS Online? So as a cache or raster or TIFF, in order to keep the high resolution.
Yeah, so obviously the resolution is dependent, I guess, on how you've actually captured the images. But in order to kind of retain it, there's a few different ways that you can share it in terms of formats. So it may be a tile cache. You could be doing this as a tiled imagery or dynamic imagery. And I guess we have to better understand your images and your work, your use case as well to know what's right for you. But for example, a tile cache as well, it doesn't retain kind of some of that attribution. It doesn't allow you for analysis. So it's a really great one for a simple visualization that's allowing that fast rendering. So great for conceptual kind of base maps. The other types of imagery, so tiled imagery, again, that is great, and it allows a lot more analysis actually available on it. So we can now do on the fly processing for it. So again, depends what you need to do. And dynamic imagery is dynamically kind of mosaicing your images together. So if that hasn't answered your question, please get in touch with us and we can maybe dive into it a little bit further for your specific use case.
I can also expand on it. So when we were doing the work using drone to map, it uploads the data as tile packages. So, and that seems to work really well, and it has a good use of credits on ArcGIS Online as far as the storage options for that.
Great. I think that's a fairly comprehensive answer. But yeah, reach out to us if that's an answer everything that you need. Next up, so yeah, both Tasha and Jeff might have a bit of experience here. So when making a true ortho of a building, how do you get the imagery of the ground that was previously obscured by the lean of the building in the normal image?
I can answer that. So a lot of that was down to the overlap that we had to specify across the site. So making sure that you had a comprehensive overlap of your imagery. So for ours, we specified somewhere between 70 and 80% overlap, and that allows you to get a much truer ortho image for each site, and that's both the forwards and backwards overlap as well as side to side.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. Hopefully that answers that one. So what is site scan and when would I want to use it versus drone to map? So I can probably have a quick stab at that one. So they both process drone imagery. Site scan is cloud-based. Drone to map is a desktop client, something like ArcGIS Pro. So if you need to work in an offline environment or you have, I guess, small amounts of imagery, then drone to map might suit. Site scan comes with a flight app and fleet management, online hosting. So yeah, they're similar, but yeah, there's a load of extra things that come with site scan that drone to map doesn't have, but then drone to map is offline or can be offline if you wanted to. So so yeah,
just to add to that as well is that we also have our flight app as well. So that allows you to go out and autonomously capture your images, and you can push that into either site scan or drone to map as well. So really kind of extend it in either way. Yeah,
good point, Tash. Yeah, absolutely. So how does site scan work with drone in a box? So for those of you who don't know, you can get a drone in a box now, and you can leave that on a site, and it can fly without any, I guess, human intervention. So you can leave it there. Regulations need to keep up with it, but site scan can work with a drone in a box. So the point of a drone in a box is that the box opens, the drone flies, comes back to base, box closes, and then uploads images. So there is a way using the site scan API to process that imagery when the drone returns to the box and then upload it to your site scan online account. So that's how site scan would work with drone in a box. But yeah, regulations got to catch up with us a little bit for drone in a box to actually work and be useful. That answers that. Tash, do you want to answer the difference between Reality Pro extension and Reality Studio?
Yeah, definitely. So these are new products and they both come with the same functionality. I guess the reason why you would use either one of these depends on potentially a use case and who you are as a user. So if you're already using desktop, then you would possibly be using that Reality Pro extension. So it's using all different sensors. Whereas Reality Studio is a standalone application. So as I mentioned, it's for that aerial imagery and creating these, citywide, countrywide meshes. And with that, with Reality Studio, there is stronger kind of hardware requirements. So you need to use metric cameras. There's a lot more in terms of the RAM and storage. So we can provide some links as well, which kind of details that. But again, thinking down to a use case, I'm thinking for a lot of you here that Reality Pro extension would be great to kind of explore. But that Reality Studio, yeah, is for kind of those different use cases there and more strenuous in terms of those requirements.
Thanks, Tash. Next up, will there be any more imagery at the Esri UK Scottish Conference next week? I certainly hope so. Tash, Ali, I'm guessing there is.
Yeah, so I'm not sure which products particularly they're using, but in the plenary, I've heard they're doing a really cool demo around object extraction of deer. So a little bit of a different use case around environmental consulting there. But yeah, some great content.
Fantastic. Yeah. We'll look forward to that next week. Do we have any customers using SiteScan? Sounds really cool. Yeah, it is cool. I've seen it in action many times. We do have lots of customers using it. Yeah, we have a mixture of customers that use it to fly their drones. So they use that flight app that Tash mentioned to go out and actually fly their drones autonomously, making sure that it's all accurate and captured correctly. And then those that use it to process and manage all of their drone imagery. They use it for volumetric analysis and stockpile measurements and yeah, before and afters and site progress over time. And all of that rich data can be shared into ArcGIS Online. So yeah, we do. So yeah, reach out to us if you want to learn more. So what are the key challenges when planning for drone flights and ensuring coverage and quality? What are some considerations that need to be taken into account? It's a great question. It's one that I would probably defer to our partners, Heli guys. So they're not on this webinar today. So we have our partners, Heli guy, who do training courses on SiteScan. They can say the drones, they do trainings, train you up to become a drone pilot. But there are a number of things. It's the height in which you're flying. It's the angle in which the camera is facing. It might be that you want to use ground control points, which are those checkerboards that you saw in Jeff's presentation, which provide greater accuracy when it comes to the processing of the data. So yeah, lots and lots of different considerations and challenges when planning for drone flights. Do reach out to us and we'll put you in touch with the Heli guy people. Hopefully that answers that one. Does ArcGIS Image for ArcGIS Online make sharing to ArcGIS Online easier than having to process it in ArcGIS Pro? Tash?
So it's obviously taking away a few of the steps in the process. So yeah, when you are sharing imagery to AGOL, it's just a really simple wizard that allows you to specify what type of imagery you're wanting to host and really walks you through it. So in my opinion, yes, it does make it easier.
Great to hear, Tash. Thank you. Okay. Awesome presentation, Tash. Good work. More webinars on practical examples of how to use imagery models, please. Yes, noted. We shall do that.
Yeah, there's also some great, what I would really point you to is the imagery workflows as well. So there's guided workflows that have been put together by our imagery and reality team here at Inc. So we're constantly adding to that. So definitely would recommend that. And we can provide some links to that.
Great, thanks, Tash. Last couple of minutes, last few questions we'll get through. One for Jeff, I think. So were you able to batch process drones map for all of your sites, or was each site processed individually?
We chose to process them individually to try and make sure that we were getting the best results for each one. So there's a lot of settings that you can tweak and play around with per site. So depending on the quality of the actual imagery that we were getting and the clarity of it, so like the weather conditions when it was flown, whether it was sunny or partly cloudy, we had to tweak some of the settings inside drone to map. So as a result, basically, we just kind of processed each one individually when it was pretty quick, really.
Great, thanks for confirming, Jeff. Next one, what license is required in order to use all the demo? Explained for ArcGIS image. So I guess, yeah, license, you need a, I believe it's a create a user or above in ArcGIS Online with the ArcGIS image, ArcGIS Online add-on to that user type. And do we provide any free video tutorials? I believe we do. I think some of them are actually included in that resource page. If they're not, I will check. We'll get some sent out. But yes, there's as with all things Esri, there's always learning and free videos, etc. available to you. So hopefully that answers that one. Just checking on the time, we're looking good. Last one, where can I find more details to integrate ArcGIS with Unreal Engine? Tash has a wealth of information out there. Where best can we find
it? So the developers platform as well have really kind of got rich detail in tutorials and sample code with that SDKs for Unreal Engine. So I would definitely say to look there first. If you want to get even more inspired by using it, there's some great videos that have been put out from different conferences as well. So 5-minute videos that really kind of give you a flavor for what's possible. So again, I would definitely go out and watch them. But yeah, lots of resources.
Great. Thanks, Tash. So yeah, that's us for today. I'd like to thank both Tash and Jeff for their time and the great presentations they put together. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it was enlightening. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.